Welcome to Sunday School. I'm Elder Robert Wilson. It's so good to be here this morning. We're just so grateful that you took the time to make Sunday School a part of your agenda. We have a good lesson this morning. Our subject is Joseph finds favor. We'll be looking at Genesis chapter 41, verses 37 through 45, and then verses 50 through 52. Our memory verse said, "And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is?" Joseph was a man that had the Spirit of God. So we're talking about Joseph finds favor. Now, favor is support. It is approval. It is something granted or done in goodwill. So if we favor a person, that means that we treat that person better, or we treat that person in a kinder way. Through our obedience, we gain the favor of God and man. So in our subject today, Joseph finds the favor of Pharaoh. So when we look at our lesson, let's look at verse 37 and 38. "And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is?" Now Joseph not only interpreted the dream for the king, but he also gave him a plan to help the nation survive the upcoming famine. Now this caught the eye of the king, and it caught the eye of his servants. And he said to his servant, "Can we look around? Can we find somebody else around here that's like this person here, that's like Joseph? Can we find somebody else that the Spirit of God is, whom the Spirit of God is?" Now this Pharaoh didn't serve God or didn't know God, but God has a way of revealing himself even to those who have no knowledge of him. Now some people say that God only speaks to the saints of God, to the people of God. But if that was true, then all of us would be lost, because we can remember that this same Spirit that gave Joseph the interpretation of the dream, and the same Spirit that gave Joseph the plan to help the nation survive, that's the same Spirit that draws us to salvation. When we were sinners, when we didn't know anything about God, when we didn't know God, we didn't serve God, we didn't have any knowledge of God, it was that same Spirit that drawed us to God, and that we acknowledged God from that Spirit. So God has a way to reveal himself even to those that have no knowledge of him. Let's look at verse 39 and 40. "And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, For as much as God has showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according to thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou." Pharaoh began to announce the existence of God. Now this was shown through the wisdom of Joseph, through the Spirit of God that was in Joseph. So he elevates Joseph to being over his house, or over the palace. And it gave him authority over all his people. Not over all of Joseph's people, but over all the king's people. And he declared that only he would be greater than Joseph, because he was the one actually that's sitting on the throne. So never think that your life is over because of circumstances that may have happened early on in your life. because you might have had a bad childhood or something bad happened further down the line in your life. Never think your life is over because of circumstances, because God can take those circumstances and turn them around and work them out in your favor, through his favor. Let's look at verses 41 and 42. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. Now Joseph gets a formal promotion. He gets this formal promotion by Pharaoh. Pharaoh takes off the ring off his finger, which is a representation of royalty. So he transferred the ring off his finger and puts it on Joseph's finger. And he gives Joseph a robe of fine linen. So this was a formal promotion. This was not a private promotion. Now, a private promotion is when the boss might call you into the office and say, well, we've been watching you and we like your work and we want you to be a part of our team. So what we want you to do, we want you to go out there and we want you to keep an eye on everything and everybody. If you see something strange, come back and tell us. But now, don't say anything to anybody because we want this to be just between us. So you have not been made a supervisor because you can't tell anybody. You can't be a supervisor if you can't give instruction and you can't tell anybody what to do or what not to do. So you've not been made a supervisor, but you have been made a spy. But this is not like God. When God promotes you, people will know it. People will know it out front. People could see the promotion of God in your life. Verse 43 and 44. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Now Pharaoh tells Joseph that he is now second in command, and no one has the authority to lift a hand or a foot against him. Nobody can do anything against Joseph unless they come to Pharaoh first. So nobody has that authority to even mess with Joseph. Now, is this the same Joseph that life was kind of bad in the beginning, the childhood that he had when his sibling was jealous against him, that hated him, that Joseph got into a pit? Is this the same Joseph that was sold into slavery as a servant twice, sold twice into slavery as a servant? Is this the same Joseph that was thrown into prison? God has a way of turning things around in your life if you continue to run the race. See, Joseph never stopped. He never stopped believing God. He never stopped obeying God. Now, Joseph wasn't running to get to this position. Now, he wasn't running a campaign or trying to manipulate his way of getting into a elevation or promotion. But just through obeying God brought the favor of God in his life and elevation. And this also brought elevation in the king's life. See, because this is one of the covenant that God made with Abraham. God told Abraham that he will bless those who bless him. So Pharaoh blessed Joseph. He blessed Joseph. So Pharaoh had a blessing come to him, or he had an elevation come to him. See, because it took something for Pharaoh to notice that him being king, being in the position that he was in, and had the authority that he had, to let someone else come in, someone with the status of Joseph, with a lower estate as Joseph had, to come in and interpret the dream, and then give him a plan to survive the upcoming event. So it took something for that king to acknowledge that Joseph had something that he didn't have. So this was an elevation for Pharaoh, for the king. Verse 45. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paaneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. So Pharaoh gives Joseph this new name, which means God speaks and lives. And this is the same Pharaoh that didn't know God or serve God. He revealed his name to the king, and he gave his name to Joseph. God speaks and lives. Verse 51. Verse 50. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God said, He had made me forget all my toils and all my father's house. So he named the first son Manasseh, for God made him to forget all his toils and all his father's house. Now, sometimes we need to forget some things that are in the past. We need to let them go, because they serve no purpose to us anymore. God made Joseph forget all these things because of the favor that God had in his life, and how the favor of God added blessings to his life. God caused him to forget all of those bad things. He forgot all the bad relationships, the arguments, the infighting between the brothers. He forgot about being sold into slavery. He forgot about being thrown into prison. Because of the blessing that God gave him through his favor, he forgot about all those things. So he named his son Manasseh in remembrance of what God had done for him. Verse 52. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for God had caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. Now that's a good one there. God caused him to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. This means that God called where he started out at, the place where he was a curse to him. It was a hard life for him. He had lots of trouble. But God calls him to be fruitful. God calls him to be blessed in that land. In other words, God took what was meant for his harm and turned good into it. God can take whatever in your life that is wrong, that has been hard for you, and he could turn it around and cause it to be good in your life. So that is Joseph's life. Joseph found favor. But can we find that same favor. How do we do that? We do that just as Joseph did, through the obedience to God. Joseph never stopped believing God. Through all the things that Joseph went through, he never stopped being obedient to God. So his obedience earned him the favor of God. Now, if we do the same thing, if we stay obedient to God, we have the favor of God, which is the approval of God, which is the support of God, which is God's goodwill toward us. So when we stay faithful to God, obedience to God, we will gain the favor of God. But God will take it a little bit further. He will also give us the favor of man.